Okay, so let's dive right in with a big question. What does it really mean to belong to a place?
Is it about where you were born, the property you own, or is it something deeper? We're going to explore this whole idea through two very different stories, two very different lives that, believe it or not, end up in the exact same place.
So our first story kicks off with this really fascinating idea. What if belonging isn't something you're given, but something you learn, like a skill, an apprenticeship really, one that you learn through just deep, patient time spent in a specific place? And that brings us to a guy named Thomas Hendricks. Now, he heads back to his grandfather's remote cabin out in Wyoming after being away for 9 whole years. But this isn't just a trip home. He's trying to do something much, much deeper than just arriving.
See, he came back because he felt like he'd lost something really important, a connection not just to the land but to himself. You know that feeling? When your attention is just scattered everywhere? So the big question is, where do you even start to find something you've lost like that?
Well, Thomas starts what he calls an apprenticeship of presence. And that sounds kind of fancy, but it's really a hands-on practice for relearning the land. It's built on a few core disciplines. This isn't about just sitting back and enjoying the view. No, this is active work.
Okay, so it breaks down into 3 parts. First step, just watch. He's learning what he calls the land's slow grammars, really seeing things without all that mental noise. Second, he does hard, physical work, like hauling water. That kind of thing forces your mind right into the here and now. And third, he starts to read the land's history, in the patterns of the trees and the trails the animals leave behind.
And all of this leads him to his grandfather's old notebook. And what's inside is his real goal, to mend this broken thread of attention, this legacy passed down through his family. It's a really powerful story of coming home. But, and this is a big but, what if you have no home to return to?
Yeah, what if the thing you inherited isn't a place, but the lack of a place? The exact opposite of presence.
So here you have this really stark contrast, right? On one hand, you've got Thomas with his inheritance of presence, an actual physical place he can go back to. But on the other hand, you have an inheritance of absence, where home isn't a spot on a map. It's a memory, or maybe even a wound.
And this is where we meet our second voice, a writer who calls himself Varn Placeless. And yeah, he completely challenges this whole idea of returning to a home you never actually had, or one that doesn't even exist anymore. For him, that whole story of escaping to the countryside, well, that's a luxury not everyone has. See, for Varn, and honestly, for millions of people, there is no cabin in the woods to go back to. His grandfather's village, it was literally burned down, wiped off the map. So his inheritance isn't land. It's a feeling of longing for a place that only exists in family stories.
But here's the thing. He doesn't just give up. Not at all. Instead, he starts his own apprenticeship. He calls it an apprenticeship of absence. And he finds his curriculum, his lessons, not in some beautiful, pristine forest, but in the forgotten, scrappy, resilient corners of the city.
So, okay, we have these 2 stories that seem like they're from different planets, right? One is all about presence, the other is all about absence. But what if they're actually pointing to the exact same truth? What if they're teaching the exact same lesson?
I mean, just look at this. Their worlds couldn't be more different, but what they do is almost identical. They're both learning by paying super close attention to what's right in front of them. It doesn't matter if it's a beautiful aspen grove or an abandoned city lot, an elk or a pigeon, the practice is the same.
And this leads us to a new and I think much more powerful definition of what it means to belong. This apprenticeship of place, it's not about what you're looking at or even where you are. It's all about how you look. It's a practice you can do anywhere, not a destination you have to arrive at.
And this shared discipline, this deep, patient attention, it's captured perfectly in this metaphor of 2 notebooks.
Think about it. Thomas's notebook, it's continuing a family story. He's picking up that pen to mend a broken thread of observation that was passed down to him. But Varn's notebook, he has to start a completely new one, from scratch. He's weaving a new thread of meaning from all the broken pieces of displacement and loss. And that, right there, is the core idea. Both of these men are doing the exact same fundamental work. They're paying attention, they're bearing witness, they're making a record of what they see. One is mending an old thread, the other is weaving a new one, but they are both creating meaning where they are. And Varn's conclusion from all this is just beautiful. He says this kind of deep attention, It's like a commons that nobody can put a fence around. It's a kind of belonging that can't be taken away from you because it's a skill you carry inside yourself. It's your own inner territory, and no one can ever take that away. So we end with a question, but this one's for you. What apprenticeship is waiting for you right where you are right now? What's in your world, I mean literally right outside your window or even in a plant on your desk that's just waiting for your attention? What story is out there waiting for you to write